The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. We have a really eclectic and exciting show tonight.
Yes, my name is Professor Uri Marinov. I'm here in the School of Sustainability at the IDC Herzliya. This is a school, a new school that we established 4 years ago, and we are now having our first graduating class. Before that, I was for many years in government. I was the first Director General of the Ministry of Environment. And before that, established the Environmental Protection Service in the Ministry of Interior. And I've been in the environment field for more than 4 decades. The globe is under a threat of increasing the temperatures because of the use of fossil fuel. The use of fossil fuel, main reason, there are other reasons, but that's the main reason, cause the production of CO2 and other gases that increase the temperature on the globe. And we are noticing in the last few years several phenomena that are affecting almost every human being and every animal species and plant around the world. We see increase in temperatures, we see storms, we see droughts, we see fires, we see rising in sea level, unrest, social unrest, movement of population, and we measure increase in temperature of 0.8 degrees centigrade since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Scientists say that if the temperature will increase up to 2 degrees, that will cause, in fact, almost the end of civilization. Floods, increase in sea levels, and diseases, and almost extinction of the human race. So I don't want to predict when it will happen. I don't know what will happen with the Arab revolts and Daesh and so on, but ISIS and so on. But I do claim that we do have a threat to our civilization. Most of the world is affected more or less the same. Some claim that the polars, the South Pole and the Antarctica and the North Pole are being affected more seriously than the rest of the world, but it's a phenomenon that affects almost everyone and every corner of the world. We here in Israel are affected even a little bit more than the rest of the world. The rise in temperature here, the average rise in temperature here is almost 2 degrees. We have storms. We have less rain, but with very heavy storms. And certainly we are going to be affected by the rise of the Mediterranean, which could cause tremendous damage to aquifers, the coastal aquifer, and to our existing here in this country. If you look at the measurements of the thickness of ice in the polar regions, you see that there is less ice and glaciers in these areas. And this is a phenomenon that could be quite effective because the color of the glacier today is white. Once it's melt, it turns into blue. The color blue absorb more sun rays, and so it can absorb more radiation from the sun. This will cause the release or more increased release in methane, which is it's 20 times more effective as a gas as CO2. So we can enter with the melting of the glaciers and the ice fields in the northern part of the world, or the southern part of the world, we can enter a situation where we have a runoff effect that it will be very difficult to stop. We cannot allow the world to go to increase the temperature of the average temperature of the world by more than 2 degrees. That's the point where it will become, we can reach a point which will be very difficult to reverse it. The key issue is to stop the use of fossil fuels. It's the end of coal, it's the end of oil, and it's the end of gas. This is the simple answer. We are on the verge of revolution. The fossil fuel brought us the industrial revolution in the middle of the 19th century, brought us the affluence of the Western world, we come to a point where we need to stop using this fuel. We need to stop using coal. We need to stop using oil, and later on gas as well. This would ensure us that the temperature will not rise. This is the key point. We have the sun as a solution. 1 hour of sun can provide the whole energy that the world needs for a whole year. I'll say it again. 1 hour of sunrise, of sun radiation, can provide the whole energy that the world needs for a whole year. The only problem we have now is how to convert it into electricity and into fuel for transportation. And so we know how to do it. The technology is here. We know how to do it. We can convert the sun into photovoltaic, with photovoltaic films directly into electricity, or we can warm up liquids and produce steam and produce electricity. And this is the solution. Sun is also, when I say sun, solar, I also mean wind. Just last Thursday, it's an unbelievable, but last Thursday, Denmark produced 140% of all their needs in electricity from wind. And so they could sell 40% of it to neighboring countries. 140%. Of course, it didn't last for a long time, but it was a short-term phenomena, but it just demonstrates that we can do it. So the idea is to store energy, to store the solar energy. This is the key point. We have the energy, we need to store it for winter time, for night, for countries where there's not so much sunshine. And the solution is to use renewable energy to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And hydrogen is a fuel. Hydrogen is, when you use hydrogen, you get water as emissions of water, and you get energy. And hydrogen, in my way of thinking, is the way to store solar energy. And you can then store it or ship it or use it for transportation. You can use hydrogen directly in cars or via fuel cells. Fuel cells using hydrogen produce electricity, and so My way of seeing the future is that we have very distributed system of production of electricity, where everyone produces its own electricity by using fuel cells. I read yesterday an article that says that in 10 years, listen carefully, in 10 years, all the cars in the world will be electric cars. In 10 years. Why? Because it's more convenient and it's cheaper than gasoline. It will be cheaper than gasoline, and it will not pollute the air. So there's no difference in acceleration between regular car and electric car. There are now electric cars that you can drive 100 and 150 kilometers between refueling. And don't forget that this is just the beginning. We are, when there is an increase in need for coal or for oil, the price of these fuels is going up. But where there is an increase in the production of solar or wind, the price of it will go down. The more we use it, the price will go down. The price of solar panels went down 95% in the last few years. So this is the future. The future is renewable energy that will make a big production, big power plants obsolete, like the dinosaurs. You look at where I'm looking today at a big power plant as a dinosaur, that will disappear in a few years. The value of Tesla, which is a car company that produces electric cars, Tesla produces 40,000 cars a year in the United States. Its value is 50% of General Motors that produce 9 million cars. So this is the future. If you want to invest in the future, you should invest in renewable energy. The wind, as I told you earlier, Denmark is producing, and you see it in the UK, you see it in Germany, you see it in many, in some European countries, Norway, both on land and off in the sea. And so there is no question about it that wind can produce all the energy needs of the world, and the price of it is coming down, and this will be where we will get our energy. They will produce hydrogen and will ship the hydrogen to northern countries where there is not so much sun or there is not enough wind. This is the way it is going to be done. Not Israel, of course. It's a small country. It's a small country and very densely populated. And for the production of solar energy, you need extensive areas. So we will not be able to export solar energy to other countries. But certainly the deserts, the Arab deserts, the desert in Australia, in many countries, desert will turn into solar farms and will produce hydrogen for the needs of the world. The production of oil and coal is a $1 trillion economy, and the economy will have to change. This economy will be of an economy without carbon. Carbon is the problem. With carbon, there's production of CO2. It will be a free carbon economy. And these countries will have to change the way they are operating. And of course, from a political point of view, I'm not an expert on it, but from a political point of view, Israel should look forward to such a situation, because what is the power of the Arab world today, or Iran today? Is the oil. If there will be no need for oil, their political power in the world will come down. As the representative of Israel to the United Nations Environment Program, I appeared in many international conferences and represented Israel. I was the head of the delegation to the Rio de Janeiro conference in 1992. The United Nations Environment Program recognized my work both in Israel and internationally, and chose me as one of the 500 people around the world who contributed to the world of the environment, to the cause of the environment. And it was a very nice honor to receive. It was related to my work in general in the environment. Don't forget that in the 70s and 80s and 90s, the issue of global warming was not so prevalent in our discussion. We worked on air pollution, we worked on water pollution, we worked on the protection of wildlife and biodiversity. We cleaned the sea in Israel. I don't know if you remember it, but the Mediterranean in Israel was completely polluted, and people were not allowed even to bathe in the Mediterranean. And we in the Environmental Protection Service and the Ministry of Environment, we cleaned up the sea, and this was recognized by the United Nations Environment Program as a major achievement. I think that the situation is improving in the last few years. The first international conference on environment was in Stockholm in 1972. And I was there as a representative of Israel. And obviously the attention of the world was not on the issue of the environment, especially not of the developing countries. But throughout the years, I noticed that more and more people in more and more countries are getting involved and understand the issue quite well. In Rio de Janeiro in 1992, the whole world was talking about sustainable development. Suddenly the word sustainable development was the word to talk about. And since then, it became even more prevalent, and this year in December we are going to see in Paris the gathering of all the leaders of the world talking about one issue only, global warming, and what we're going to do about it. So the knowledge, the awareness is going up. More and more people understand that if we don't do something about it, it will be very difficult to continue to exist in this world. The production of meat and the consumption of meat cause emission of 80% of all global warming gases. And so if you want to do something about the future of the world, you should stop eating meat. You become vegetarian. I've been doing it for the last 22 years. The meat production and consumption cause more emission of gases than automobiles. Think about it. You have to invest water and invest fertilizers and invest pesticides in the production of food for the animals. Most of it is being wasted because the conversion from pasture to meat is a very wasteful operation. The cows have a digestive system that produce methane, and so they belch methane all the time. And then you process the meat, you ship it. All of these processes are emitting global warming gases, and greenhouse effect is tremendous. Meat, then less than that sheep, then poultry and fish are the more efficient one in that way, and that's why I eat only fish. It depends. If we will be effective in reducing the use of fossil fuel, then we will be able to allow some production of greenhouse gases by agriculture and so on. But if not, then we will have to use any measure. Reduce the emissions from transportation, reduce emission from agriculture, reduce emission from housing, There is a movement now in the world called Meatless Sundays, and we have it here in Meatless Mondays in Israel. And this is just the beginning, that people understand that whatever they do, every move that you do during the day, whether you take the elevator or not. For instance, I don't use elevators. If there are 3 or 4 floors, I walk. But you probably don't even think twice about it, that you walk into an elevator instead of going down and walk down the 3 or 4 floors. I'm not doing it on the high rises of 30 and 40 floors, but certainly in a place like we have here, I don't use the elevator. Why? Because I want to conserve it, to conserve energy. I never leave my room without turning off the computer, without turning off the lights, without turning off the air conditioning. All of these are measures that every one of us can do to reduce the danger of global warming. When I teach here in the first class, the first day of school, I tell the students that I'm here not to tell them facts, because all the facts are in the internet, and they can get all the facts that they want. I am here to turn them from regular people into people who are aware of the environment, people who know how to behave differently, what to do to reduce the impact of our impact on the global environment. I'm a veterinarian by profession. I studied at Iowa State University in the United States. I went to agriculture school. I worked with cows, and in the kibbutz in Nahal Oz on the Gaza Strip, I managed the dairy farm. Then I went to Iowa State University to study veterinary medicine, but when I came back, I decided that this is not my fate, and I need to move into a different field. We need to think of, is what we're going to do now is necessary? Do we have to drive, or where can we walk? If can we take the bus instead of taking our private car? Can we take public transportation instead of private transportation? Should we eat this or should we not? Should we travel abroad or not? All of these are considerations that we should take every day, every hour during our lifetime. Should we turn on the air conditioning, or can we use fans? Should we turn it off when we leave the house or not? How should we ventilate our apartments? How to buy an apartment? Should we use natural light instead of artificial light? All of these are questions of conserving energy. And the less energy we use, the better. People in the developing countries are producing less greenhouse gases than we are. China as a whole is the first country in the world in the production of greenhouse, but per person they are emitting much less than the Western people. Our problem with them is to provide them with means to have a good or a higher standard of living, to improve the condition, the way they live, and their health and so on, but by methods that do not affect negatively the environment. So, for instance, solar energy is very appropriate for the developing countries. It's much easier to put on a solar heater or a solar panel than to transfer electricity from large-scale power plants in the developing world. So I see the less energy consuming operations much more appropriate for the developing countries as they are for the developed countries. And so certainly in the future, the developing world will be much faster in adapting solar energy than the developed world. The average temperature, as I said, is increasing. It increased already, and we see it. We see less ice, less snow. Areas that were closed for navigation in the northern part of the world are now open in the summer. And you look at all the graphs of Antarctica and the North Pole, you see less and less ice there. And this is because the temperature of the world is going up. To take the temperature down, we will have to reduce the greenhouse gases emissions. And that will be, it will be quite difficult. I mean, I will be satisfied in preventing the rising of the temperature above 2 degrees, but to take it down, it will be quite difficult. Don't forget that the world is growing, population is growing. We are now 7 billion. We are probably going to be 9 or 10 billion before the population will stabilize. The standard of living is going up. We now can provide every human being around the world with more or less efficient standard of living or moderate standard of living, not our standard of living, but standard of living that will provide them with a good life. And this all will need to be take a toll on what is happening to the natural resources of the world. So to think of a future where the temperature will go down, this is a little bit too optimistic, I think. I always say that an environmentalist must be an optimist. And despite all the terrible things that I predicted, I'm still an optimist. Why? Because I think human beings are waking up when they are when they are facing a dangerous situation. It's very difficult for politicians to make difficult decisions. To say today, let's stop using fossil fuel, it's an almost impossible decision for a politician to make. But when more and more signs will come up, when they will see more and more weather events, like 1/3 of Manhattan being flooded, or New Orleans being flooded, or fires in Canada like we have this week, like drought in California that we have in the last 4 or 5 years. When all these weather events will become fiercer and stronger, people will start to change their attitude and to make a decision. And so deep in my heart, I believe that the world will continue to survive because people will take the right steps. Israel was the first country in the world to produce solar heaters. The first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, orders in the 50s the people in the physics laboratory to produce solar heaters, and you see them all over the country. Israeli company produced the first solar field that was built in the Mojave Desert in California. But unfortunately, we did not continue to be too active in the field of solar energy. And I always say that the government should not help, they don't help, they even deter and damage the natural economic forces that want to continue and produce solar energy. And so I appeal to the government to take this into consideration and not to disturb the economic growth of this field. In other areas, we're doing much better than the rest of the world. We are recycling 80% of our sewage. Our effluents are used for agriculture. No country in the world comes even close to that in the reuse of effluents in agriculture. We produce more than 50% of our water with desalinations. We produce more than 50% of electricity with natural gas, and the use of coal is coming down. Not fast enough in my way of thinking, but it's coming down. We clean the sea, we provide fresh water, clean fresh water, and there is no need to buy bottled water in the country. I never use bottled water in my consumption of water. We have fantastic nature reserves and a government organization to protect the biodiversity of this country. And so I quite proud to say that the environment in Israel today is much better than it was ever before. There is no question in my mind that this could be a fantastic place to live in the Middle East once we solve all our political problems, hopefully soon. But we have the knowledge, we have the resources, we have the geographical situation, and we can do it. We know how to produce electricity, we know how to produce water, we know how to improve the standard of living. You know that in the last 30 years, the longevity in Israel went up 10 years. The average lifespan of an Israeli is now 10 years more than it was 30 years ago, despite all the facts and despite the fact that we absorbed more than 1 million Jewish people from the former Soviet Union, where the longevity there was much lower than here. So we know how to do it. All we need is a little bit of peace around here to do this.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. Again, we are in Israel, in Jerusalem, Israel. We're talking with a young minister, young in looks, young in thought, young in everything. Her name is Tzipi Livni. She's the Minister of Housing as of yesterday, and Minister of Absorption, I guess, from a longer time. I knew her father. He was a terrific man. His name was Eitan Livni. He's one of my first associations in Israel. And he was fundamentally a very strong Zionist, and that's the best way to describe him. Right-wing Zionist, I would say. Tzipi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you're very active now. You got two ministries. You got a prime minister that's a little bit hung up now into some kind of quabble with his Likud party. I think you're a pretty good backer of Sharon at this moment, aren't you?
Yes, because I believe in what he's doing.
Do you think that a central party or a committee of any party, Likud or Labour, should dictate the foreign policy of a country?
I believe that this is what vast majority in Israel believes in. And you mentioned my father, and on his grave it is tattooed both sides of Jordan River as Israel. And
really?
Yes, really, by his request as part of his will. And I believe that the Jewish people has the rights all over the land of Israel, but there's a need for us to keep Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, and that's why I believe that there is the time in which we have to compromise. And I believe that what I represented now represent vast majority in Israel. Unfortunately, it's not easy to do. There is no partner on the other side. The Palestinians cannot accept yet the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. But I believe that we'll have to choose at the end of the day between all of the land and between keeping Israel as a Jewish state and democracy, while these both two values are going together, combined, and not going one against the other.
What made people like your father, Chaim Landau, they were such staunch Zionists? They had no interest in money. What brought them to this position? They were fascinating men. I mean, I was a young kid when I met them, and it was always interesting to talk to them. But they used to call up Begin all to say, I'm a faked all the time.
Faked,
Commander,
yes.
you remember that?
I remember as a child,
Yeah.
while Begin was calling my father, he answered the phone, I'm faked, you know.
Right. What put them into, what was their backbone? It was tremendous.
I spoke with my father. I entered politics after my father died.
By the way, Hamafaked means commander.
Commander, yes.
Right.
So I spoke with my father, and after the State of Israel was established, he was elected to the parliament, but he said that the most important things he did before the establishment of the State of Israel, for the establishment of the State of Israel, and what's happened afterwards, it's so less important for him, you know, even though he was a member of parliament and all the things connected with the party. It was very important for him to create something new, real homeland.
Where was he born, your father?
He was born in Lithuania, but he came to Israel in 1925 as a child. So he's merely almost was born in Israel, but he believed that the most important goal is to establish a secured state for generations to come, and this is what they done. Both of them, by the way. Also, my mother.
Really?
Yes, she was a fighter also in the Irgun.
It is said. You have children?
I have two.
It's said that people take values from their parents, basically.
I believe so.
No, I believe that too. So, obviously, you have your father's values. Would he look at solving this problem by recognizing Palestinian state? What do you think?
Even though it looks like we changed our ideology, I don't think so. I believe that what I represent today is part of the education or the values that I was raised upon. I mean, it was not only about the land of Israel, but it was about the establishment of Israel as a Jewish state with values of, as you said before, he never spoke about money. It was about values, about justice, about believing in people,
Well, he was a
believing in the
righteous man.
Jewish people.
Right.
And when it comes all together, unfortunately, we have to choose, because I cannot get it all. And that's why, by choosing, and because I believe that there's a need for us to combine our values as a Jewish state and the democracy, there's a need for me to compromise. I'm sure that it would have been difficult for him maybe to see or to hear what I say today, but my mother, who was also part of the Irgun, she fought with him for the establishment of the State of Israel, and she once told me that it's very difficult for her to accept it, but she understands now that they fought for our future, and I have to take tough decisions for the future of my children, her grandchildren. And I believe that this is what I'm doing as part of what I was raised upon.
Was your father a religious man?
It was traditional. I mean, it's a kind of a combination between, he believed in the Jewish people, not only, and the Jewish people, it's not only being religious. So it was very important for him to keep some of the
Traditions?
some of the traditions, the connection. He went to synagogue, but he was not religious. I mean, he kept part of it because it was very important for him to keep something which is the common denominator between us, between him, and between the Jews in diaspora. This is the connection between the Jews who are living today and between those who were living in the land of Israel thousands of years ago.
All right, but that's a key issue now in Israel, because you believe as a Likud person that you got to give up some land for peace. There are people who believe that you don't give up any land, period.
Okay.
So how do you overcome that?
As I said before, I believe that vast majority in Israel and also within Likud members understands that there's a need to compromise. I believe that only few of Likud members believe that time is working for us, and that's why we should wait, do nothing, and
This was Shamir, basically.
Shamir and some of my friends in
Uzi
today's
Landau
politics.
on this show, Benny Begin on this show, said that they would never recognize a Palestinian state. On this show, we have tapes.
But Uzi Landau, by the way, I asked him because I said, listen, I would like to understand if you believe that you will never give up only even a small piece of land.
Right.
And he said, no, today, even he says
Is that right?
that there's a need to do painful concessions. And when we are talking about painful concessions, we are talking about the land. But there are differences within among us. I mean, there are some people saying that they will never give up part of the land. There are some people saying that they will give up part of the land only when terror stops. There are some people saying that they will give up part of the land only when a final status agreement will be signed, both sides, or when they'll find a partner on the Palestinian side. But it's like accepting the concept, but you know, the differences are not
Well,
in
they're
the
nuances.
concept.
We're both lawyers, so there are a lot of nuances.
Yes. So we can agree upon the concept.
But can you unite with Sharon today? Can a Likud unite behind Sharon?
I'm sure that we can, but unfortunately politics is not only about the need of the people, but sometimes about the need of politicians.
And many times.
Many times, yes. This was the understatement of the year, I believe what I said. And I tried to, because after the Likud referendum a few months ago, on June, it looks like we are going to split the party. And I said, listen, we don't have to do it, because we can accept the idea of giving up part of the land. There are some differences between us. Let's wait and see, because there are preparations for it to be done, and that's why I arranged, or I helped in getting an understanding between the Likud leaders, I mean between Ariel Sharon on one side and between Bibi Netanyahu, Limor Livanat, and Silvan Shalom.
How much gray hair did you get out of that? How much gray hair did you get out of that?
A lot, but it was interesting, I can say. And but it took only a few weeks, and even yesterday there was still discussions about it.
Do you get tired of this sometimes? You were a successful lawyer.
Yes, thank
and
you.
having a nice life. This is a tough life.
But it gives me power to be in politics, knowing that I have other alternatives outside. I mean, I like to practice law.
Right.
I earn my living. And that's why I can do in politics what I believe in. I mean, I don't have to survive in politics. I don't need it.
Right.
And that's why I'm doing what I believe is, as I said before, my father fought for the existence of the State of Israel, and I believe that I'm working for a better life for my children.
Never, in my experience of politics, with Menachem Begin had faced a revolution in the Likud party once he made a decision. And I can tell you from my own experience in Camp David I, the successful one, that I once came to Menachem Begin and engineered a compromise between President Carter and Begin. And I said, Mr. Prime Minister, President Carter wants to know if you can carry the party. And he said to me in his Polish English, I will carry the party, don't worry. He had no problem with it. And he had Moshe Aarons up there, and he had Shamir. These were guys who abstained.
And he had my father, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Against, it was difficult for my father to accept.
I know. I heard it personally.
So times will change. I mean, nobody respects anymore the leaders. Maybe we earned it, by the way. The lack of respect from the public, but I believe that there is a difference between the central committee of the party and between Likud voters and Likud members. I mean, most of Likud voters believe in what Ariel Sharon is doing, and maybe even most of Likud members. Within the central committee, it is totally politics. I mean, I went through the referendum to the polls and I met some of the people. So some of them told me that they cannot accept the idea because of ideological reasons, and I can respect it and even understand it. But some of them were angry at Sharon because of this and that. So it was all mixed with emotions and with anger, and it was not pure decision about what is right to the state of Israel and to the future of Israel, unfortunately.
Will there be new elections early?
I hope not, because it's important, the stability of the Israeli government. I mean, by the law we have elections every 4 years,
Right.
but in the last 10 years we have election every 2 years.
Yeah, we interviewed a psychiatrist and we asked what it meant to the population to have such an unstable government. And it obviously causes unbelievable stress and no fixation. So what people do is they detach from the news, they don't read newspapers, they don't listen to television.
Like some of my
and so what
friends.
happens then, and it's interesting theory, is zealots are the ones that do it. And a minority of the people who read newspapers, and have this ideology, they start to control the country.
Okay, but in Israel, most of the people are, well, I mean, we have news every half an hour on the radio. You cannot open a station without hearing the news, unfortunately, by the way, because like yesterday, at the middle of the day, you have an understanding that there were 2 suicide bombers, and you know, everybody has children or brothers in the army, so there's a need for us to be as citizens to know what's happening.
Yeah, but what I say is people turn off. I was sitting in a kosher restaurant with a former government employee in a very orthodox place, Shmulka Cohen or something, I don't know, Tel Aviv, and they said in Hebrew that there was an incident. And everybody said, put on the television. And she said, do you want the kugel? You know, it was like a routine of life. It's become part of the life of Israel. And unfortunately, but also we in America are suffering from the same thing. There's a lot of fear, even in this New York City where I live, that there will be a 9/11. I did interviews, I told you, with the dean of the Kennedy School. He said it's not a question of if it's going to be, it's just when. Everybody believes that it's going to happen. So in Israel, it would seem to me that maybe the people could unite a little bit better behind their government so they can move it. I tell you, I must admire Sharon, because it's a reversal of a lot of his old policies for him to make this move. I mean, this is what one calls leadership. This is really leadership. When you can reverse such doctrines that you had, because if you go back and get tapes, he was the guy that put the settlements there. And he's fighting very strongly for it. And I think the American government appreciates it very much. I really don't know what will happen over here, but I think it's important that credibility be kept. And I don't know how you get that to your people in Likud. I don't know. It calls for statesmanship.
Yes, as I said before, maybe more than that, because unfortunately there are some people looking, as you asked before, maybe an election now. You are facing an election.
You talk to these people, and some of them are very intelligent, and they'll say to you, but we can't give up the land. You know, we just can't do it. It's part of our heritage. It's the Eretz Yisrael Shlema. And they're intelligent people, and their kids are getting killed all the time in these settlements. What kind of psyche do they have?
Some of them are believers.
Right.
I mean, they believe that maybe in the future something will happen. But as I said before, most of Likud members and most of Likud parliament members are not holding the idea of never give up some of the land. Mostly they are thinking that they know better, that we should do it from another, I don't know, with an agreement. And I'm trying to tell them that, first of all, it's risky. Listen, even deciding this decision of the disengagement plan, it's not an easy decision. So it's risky. And it's much more easier to say no. But usually what I say, and this is true to the Likud within Israel and to Israel among the international community, there is no vacuum between, when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And when the Likud party knew to say only no, train left the station, and bad train. Oslo agreement was a mistake.
Absolutely.
And it was because Shamir hesitated, Madrid, and so on. And then, so we got Oslo agreement, and then Netanyahu hesitated, and we got Barak with Camp David, which part of the agreement, it's not an agreement, but the understanding in Camp David are very difficult, and they are also a mistake. So I'm trying to explain, Likud members, listen, our role is to lead this country and to initiate. And there is no, when it comes to solving the conflict, I'm not even talking in terms of living in peace, eternal peace, happily ever, or to live happily ever after, because we are talking about living in non-violent status quo in the near future. This is the goal right now, unfortunately. And there's a need to initiate. And it's risky, but we can do some steps to be sure that we are not putting Israel at risk. And if we'll not do it, Labour Party will do it. Because most of the people in Israel, they seek peace, they dream about peace, they want the initiatives. And it is true also when it comes to Israel among the international community. When Israel initiates nothing, well, somebody has his own plane. It can be also Israel opposition. And,
you're very logical, and if I were in the Likud, I would be listening to you and understand it. Tzipi, pleasure to see you. You've heard it all from Tzipi Livni, a real fighter for the rational side, I would say, of the Likud, and I guess a lot of people are hoping that she's on the right track and can move the government. We'll have to watch it. We'll see you next week.